Judy's Jungle by Gilchrist Hawes. Dedicatory explanation. Note on the intended use of Judy's Jungle. The poem is a big concerto of sorts, comprised of, from, and for the following voices: Judy, either a female voice bearing this name, or a male narrator surnamed Judy, unitalicized and without quotation marks; Emily Dickinson, perched high at her window in Amherst, unitalicized and in quotations; and, variously, the unconscious, the big other of symbols and of language, or simply God, the italicized portions. The stanzaic arrangement has been adapted from Brian Eno's song Back in Judy's Jungle on the Taking Tiger Mountain album. For Pam, who never solders an abyss with air. In cave, if I presume to hide, the walls began to tell. Creation seemed a mighty crack to make me visible. Saturday morning, nothing to do once again, just me and my notebook. That's the way to begin when you're nobody. Emily thought so, in Amherst. Perhaps it was fall, gazing out from her window, meadowy sprawl. Linnets or poodles, topics for angels or serfs. Just setting a meter, it demands perspiration and diligence. Haven't you ever attempted to place in a trance a gazelle or a codpiece? Look at them dance. One could go crazy counting the ways that they fail. I'm speaking of language, or the words that comprise it precisely. Oops, more precisely. You'll say that's a strong case in point. Damn, the habitat's leaky. Hell of a joint. Never assume that the windows are closed, nor that the floor is complete. Often there's less there than what was supposed, and sometimes it's missing its feet. Pitching conundrums and threading through loopholes is largely analogy's bane. So try not to make it too sensical now. You won't see the sand through the grain. That was quaffed from quite a spout. That's to say, it soothed her pupils. But she couldn't read it out, so we posted a refrain. Gotta start over, try it again and again, the colorless outset. Did creation begin as a wedding, or was it an auction to sell off some titan's estate? This is what we are left with. Isn't it great? Elements, laughter, sex and catastrophes, food, Dick Clark in the 60s, an American bandstand, its psalmists, then Elvis in Vegas. Now is there anything left? See them exiting Graceland, mute and bereft. There, half a trinket, summited onto the page, a gift from the gift bag. And you know what old Freud thought of gift-giving. Horrid! We first gave to mother and father our turds as advance on such presents as were our words. Johnny enjoyed them because of their stink, Mary because they were brown. After we sudsed up our hands in the sink, we flushed them and watched them go down. Later we opened our easels, our incense, and stacked up our building blocks high. And now, when stray skid marks are seen in the bowl, we shudder and venture a sigh. Though the groom was but a lad, he ignored the tailored pedants. First I do, and then egad, then the bride began to cry. Moses was banished. Israel got there alone. To Canaan they hobbled. And it took them a good 100 years or so. 70 maybe. It seems I forget quite a bit of the text that we're based on. Holiest writ. Springsteen averred it way back in 78. Our song is our gospel. That's to say, each is one with the other. The land that was promised some 3,000 or 4,000 years back, it is ours for the having. Ready, attack! History's Santa grants us again and again the things that we've taken. If the bag gets a hole, then we'll stitch it up. Yearly recycling allows us to gather our trash, send it back through the chimney. Annual bash. Mary descended the staircase with stealth, and Johnny was close at her heel. Stockings were filled, 'neath the tree lay a wealth of plunder removed from the reel. Mayflower planks and Geronimo bones that were beveled and lacquered and drilled, infused with a whiff of industrial sense. And that's how the stockings were filled. If your motive be impure, give it back to him that owns it, for possession isn't sure ere the barren land be tilled. Death is a purchase, bartering thing and event for all that collapses, overthrown in the dervish of happenstance. Death is an auction, a stopgap, an end, a refrain, an escape from beginnings, hope, and a name. Emily does it again and again, confuses her objects and the verbs which are used to deliver them. Either we lose it, our name, or it's gained when we die. So thou ask of our trinkets, who were they by? Beethoven, Gandhi, Mr. Magoo, Malcolm X, Napoleon, Chaplin, and Leone's unmonikered Eastwood. He rides into town and commences, the man with no name, his identity hidden, such is his game. Has he forgotten the name he was called? Or is he a spectre from hell who robs from his Peter to pay to his Paul such change as he scrapes from each well, slipping his noose and confuting the census, the good and the true and the same? But who would suspect that he's fleeing his names in search of their capital name? We assumed them as they fell, but we failed to grasp their senses. There was nothing left to tell, so we pried them from their frame. Difficult instant, poetry's wedding with love, for either it happens, or they fall in a slim perpetuity, one from the other, and think that it never occurred, that it folded before the conjugal word. Terrible thunder, never remembered again, though heard of and told of. Its recovery lasts the millennia, comes to completion in dim suppositions of light at the end of this tunnel. Call it our plight. Nobody's certain whether it happened in time, or whether the scripture was removed like a rib from another world. Others opine it's rather a havoc of script that fell out with the weather. Paradise stripped. Satan assembled his legions arose, and marshaled them onto the fields. I cannot tell creation apart from its throes, am blind to the spot where it yields. But each time I speak, my sweet badness doth creep from around and below and above. Then Milton remarked, gazing down on his poem, I cannot tell making from love. Fate's a bitter pill, it's true, so we're bound to have it sweetened. As with love, it gives no clue whence it comes or what it's of. Exiting Eden, leaving it day after day, that old-fashioned homestead, though it's true that we little suspected it, never acknowledged the place that we fancy our home as our paradise broken, seen through the gloam. How we got this far, nobody's bothered to ask. When did we exit? It's a question that plagues us from time to time. Could we return there, rewind the unraveling yarn? But the hay is a-kindling. Fire the barn. That's how the world goes, rather a blaze than a bang. We'll smoke up the cinders, then we'll legalize weed and hilarity, roll it with patience and seal it firm with a lick, put a match to the taper. Beautiful stick. Setting afloat friendly wisps through their lungs, they yawned and repaired to their hives, consulted the scribes on the uppermost rungs, on knowledge and how it best thrives. Where are its sources, and can it be accessed from the furthest remotes of the new? The scribes didn't answer, but laughed to themselves and swilled their oracular brew. Home is where the dream unfolds, else it withers off its axis. One might say it hardly holds when the hearth is set askew. How to get back there, that's what we hymn through the years, and what it would cost us. Is the bargeman infernal, benevolent? Wide is the water. Of that much at least we are sure. Is the proof of the crystal muddy or pure? Memory grants us much that remembrance can't touch, a myth and a homestead, and a wish that's forever eluding us, or we're evading in efforts to get there again. But we get there, it's certain. Question is when. Drums and pianos, mandolins, fiddles, guitars, a nightingale's descant, and a few sleepy conches with sitting room. Call it an evening. We'll settle ourselves neath the moon on the lawns of our earthly, heavenly tune. Home is a pastime as pleasant as song, although now and then we forget where is the portal, the chimney, the gong, the figures, the key, and the fret. After the players returned to their wives, they exhausted their loins in the sheets. And though they surrendered their mallets, their bows, their dreams re-rehearsed their repeats. Call me to my tune, my dear, rock me gently, sweet Eliza. Home is where I rest my gear. Grant me, love, your supple feats. Treacherous crevice, perilous gap in the old, with what shall we fill you? Quite a chore to discern where your limits are. Evil Knievel, he vaulted a split in the earth, was endorsed for $1 million. What was it worth? Cracks are like mountains, climb just because they are there, as if we were driven to accoutre our own inner emptiness with a reminder of something we designate need, which degenerates further into our greed. Citadel furnished, sequel to Paradise stripped, our postmodern venue. For a quarter the dragon will spit at you fire and brimstone verbatim from John 3:19, or eternalized hubris a la James Dean. X-Mart was run to the ground by the banks, and now it is owned by 3T. The loss coincided with building more tanks, the labor from X put to sea. The coasts are now clear, circulation is fine, lasting peace has returned to the real. The left sidles up to the right once again, result of the newest deal. At the bottom of the range lived a greedy king named Midas. Tin to gold he couldn't change, so he hoarded up his steel. Maybe it never happens the same way it did the first time it happened. Lend an ear as she thinks through eternity. Could be it varies in some way, like placing a shoot at the end or the middle, switching the fruit, trimming the budget, mixing genera around, allowing improvement in successive returns of creation to chapter 1, verse 1. Genetic revision. Each time it's a costlier rework. Spare us a dime? Like to contribute. Afraid I can't muster the rent. Eternity's coffers empty out at each new ever bigger bang. Guess that I'll give them as much of my corpse as is left, if they leave me with that much. Corporal theft. Gabriel's trumpet was heard all around, and ghouls from their caskets did rise. I opened mine without making a sound, and soon found myself in the skies. Millions of billions ascending to Godstock, the end of each where and each when. But then they informed us we'd botched up the job. Go back, you must do it again. Don't forget to pack your bones. Resurrection is a potluck. Crack of doom will hear the stones. Then the dead come on at 10. Socrates, Plato, what they have taught me is this. Be faithful to nonsense. It's the best way to succor your nobody. Why would you wish to be someone who screams to a bog every morning through evening, just like a frog? What she is saying, if you are listening on, is learning is useless for acquiring stray pieces of info. It's rather a method of clearing the slate in your mind, clapping chalk into dustbins, airing the rind. Reading should teach you never to read in the stars the lives of your neighbors. those that gab as they're hanging their linens at 6 in the morning. That is, we are taught not to know past the threadings of Logos. See how they grow. Derrida reached heaven's gates after 9. They gave him a puzzle to do. He looked up at Peter and started to whine. They clamped on a muzzle. You're through. You claimed all his writing, but never stopped yapping, with words spewing forth from your jaw. The colleges rather believed all his speech, and paid you to prove it as law. How that man could shoot the bull. Rarely did it catch him napping. Loud and gabby as a rule, now he shut his trap in awe. Vitalist needle, wondrous cylindrical shaft about which the world turns. Can you say what salubrious lubricant keeps you in action? Creation doth never get stuck, though at times we espy her down on her luck. How is the axle set in the motion it's in? The oil of fairies. Have you guessed its ideals she's speaking of? Radial motion is given a push in the reel by these cranial hoodlums. What do they steal? Innocence, knowledge, patience, enjoyment, or trust? Land, one's beginnings? Or a life free of guilt, disillusionment, malice from strangers, or towards them, be that as it may, and a clock that will only lead to decay? Dolly looked up at his painting with glee. By God, it will hang in the Louvre. His sense of arrangement had boldly run free. A timepiece had slopped out of groove. Time's quite a theme, but if I had been Dolly, I think I'd have chosen a fork to comment in such wise on hunger and eats. It hangs on a wall in New York. What's she saying? Is it true? Freedom's but a carrot? Golly! No, it's quite a fizzy brew. Careful where you aim the cork. Emerson came here Thursday a week before last. He showed little interest in the verses of meek little Emily. Truth is, I shunned to approach him, engage his rapport with my odd craggy buildings, lest he would snore. Dickinson second. That's how his first introduced the mouse unto Waldo, and he smiled as I offered my paw to him. No time for chatting. Come into the pantry, my dear. Mother put me to cookies. What did she fear? No one to someone. That's what I am unto him. To catch his attention, but again to be someone is dreariness. Next time he visits, I'll lower a poem on a string, which he'll claim on a jingly bell that I'll ring. Puritan Concord was taken aback. Reliance is born of the self. 80 since midwives had burned on the rack, the elect had elected to pelf. Some years ago I went trekking through Walden and looked for the stove and the pipe. Thoreau's last descendants were smoking a joint. You want some? Jamaican, it's ripe. That Kowalski's gonna pay, steamed a sweaty Carl Malden. Brando quipped, she's quite a lay, as Kazan began to gripe. Cranial muscle, deity's substance and heft, divinity's engine, God's the sound of which you are the syllable. Where is the cleavage dividing what's said from what's heard, what is thought from what's uttered, spirit from word? Where do they differ? Is there a wellspring, a source, a depth or horizon where the one empties into the other? And does the horizon consist of some third sort of thing? Is it brittle, tenacious, metal, or string? Theories will only render these thoughts that I have in other arrangements, though arrangement itself leads to entity. See my horizon? An image where sound enters word, twisting first into second, call it the third. Hegel explained to his maid as she swept, Aufhebung's a way to escape from some evil Widerspruch in which one's kept from clasping the truth by its nape. He appeared in her bodice, gazed down through the cleavage of two antithetical mounds. She said, Bitte, Georg, jetzt hebst du mich auf. occasion provided no grounds. Thesis and antithesis, one is merry, one is peevish. From them ravels synthesis onto ever higher bounds. Audience? Granted. Presence? Petition denied. It's deity's privilege, entertainment without the admittance of those with no radars to glean what perception doth miss, or mistakes for its feedback. Deity's this. Brave little pinnace, prayer goes angling for gods, the depths of Poseidon as of yet never plumbed. Does it master them? Specular fishes, we study them prinking the brine of the medial claret, heavenly wine. Deity audits, though it appears to be dumb. We cast all our speeches through the wilds of an infinite medium maybe we're part of. Perhaps the rejected last scraps that the universe vomits onto its paps. Pantagruel fell off Gargantua's lap. It shook through the hills all around. He blubbered on being awoke from his nap, and steeples collapsed at the sound. Rabelais muttered, "It's fun and humane, and will give my Franciscans a laugh. However, my thirst needs replenishment now. I'm off to the bibulous calf." Myth regathers on its cloaks, blanketed on purplish raiment, held aloft by gleaming spokes. Babel sleeps, a blind giraffe. I am the letter, destiny's note to the world, but no one doth read me 19 centuries after our Savior came. Trust in the weather to bless agricultural man with illiterate offspring, barbarous clan. I am the message telegrammed out of the real. Goliath may read me and be taken aback by the circumstance of his ungainly approach that I'll turn to good use to convey us both downwards. He's the caboose. Down from Parnassus, out of the rare and refined and back to beginnings, to the sweet Carolingian graces and topos. My David will give him a slap on his buttocky bottom. Seraphs will clap. Poverty rendered him up to the north, and Reeboks discovered his game. Now Philadelphia owns half the worth of 6 foot and nothing of fame. Iverson feigned through the paint for a layup and twisted around for the dunk. O'Neal glanced over at Kobe and scoffed. He did it, the slick little skunk. David crowned Goliath good, though the blood was simply makeup. Then he turned and donned his hood, filled his belly, and got drunk. Saturday morning, day before God took a break, the thick of creation. Not yet time to look back with misgivings concerning the edges that couldn't be tucked in the fold, or the filth it was stained with, nebulous mold. Permanent Sabbath, that's what it felt like before I had this idea. Can't remember what silly thought prompted me. No time for worry. It seems that there's nothing to do but continue this doing till it is through. Everything pleased me up to the time I conceived this ruinous monkey, who like me can enact transformation through all I've created, can even unravel the ends and displace the beginnings, spot where it bends over upon mensuration's defeat, those holes where collapse splits the frame, and nothing takes hold so that things can't repeat or follow their path to their name. Infinite darkness where no one can say if it's time or it's fate or despair. Those points where it seems that I've given up hope, where making no longer doth err. And he'll learn to blast his own nothings through what I've created, rip it so it can't be sown. Is this more than I can bear? Too late now, I've set him loose. Let him think it's his, the caitiff. Crack of doom, he'll spot my ruse, and he'll find me waiting there. Have to think just what I'll say. See, you're with creation fated. Have you spoiled your field of play, thinking it was not your care? That will be a sight to see, hordes of every men berated. Think of what they'll say to me. Hast thou, Father, worlds to spare? May we have a second chance on a globe as yet undated? Every man, see how he rants when at last he's made aware. Can I not rewind the spool? That's, however, how it's freighted. Can't undo what's done's the rule that I made myself declare when I started this shebang, ere I had it sized and traded, fitted out with prong and fang, why and how and when and where. Could it be I've got it wrong? Maybe I should feel elated. Is it not what all along I had reached for through the glare? Yes, that's just the way to think. Man's the one whom I've awaited. Out of nothing, something's brink, being's edge, creation's dare. God enjoyed his seventh day, posted here and there a bailiff, asked himself, was it okay? Could he rest upon his chair? Ah, he thought, it's as it is. I can always shower hail if this concoction starts to fizz. Creation, after all's my biz. And he saw that, through his flaw, universe was at a draw. He had scraped the rare, the raw. Man was being's inner claw. Yes, he'd touched the raw, the rare. Good and evil, quite a pair. And he found it held his awe, as it jived with what he saw. So he smiled and made it law, as he pondered through the glare. Sunday's orb began to flare, and he saw that it was fair, and he said that it was fair, as he found that it was fair. For he felt that it was fair, and he thought that it was fair, and he saw that it was fair. Yes, he saw that it was fair, and he saw that it was fair, that it was fair. Is Eden's innuendo, if you dare? And that was Judy's Jungle, a poem by Gilchrist Haas.